if you're in the industry and you're ready to level up, this is the conversation. This is a panel that you want to tune into here. We've got an exciting group here of panelists. And I just wanted to go ahead and welcome our moderator, Toni Benson. Toni is the Deputy Associate Director of Cybersecurity Training and Education at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And I'm really looking forward to what you and your panel has to share. So without the delay, Toni, please go ahead and take it away.
My name is Tomiko Evans, and I'm a program manager and cybersecurity specialist at Cybercrime Support Network. I'm one of the founding members of the Atlanta chapter for Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, and I'm a certified drone pilot, research drone vulnerabilities, and my brand is Cyber Rapper.
Hey everybody, Mary here. I am a senior security architect by day out in Las Vegas for one of the casinos here, and the CEO and a founding board member for the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, a cybersecurity community for women and girls, providing hands-on training and a family basically to get into cybersecurity and advance and excel in cyber.
Hi everyone, my name is Mansi, Thakar, and though my daytime jobs have been mostly in corporations, I spend the free time that I have with smaller organizations that I do inspection cybersecurity exec. Currently, I'm the CEO of Women's Society of Cyberjutsu with Nine. And you can find me during the summers at DEF CON pulling cables and securing what is known as the world's most hostile network.
Cool.
Hi everybody, my name is Dominique West. I'm currently a technical account manager, but also a security professional for the past 9 years. I am the Atlanta chapter lead for the Women's Society of Cyberjutsu, and I am also the creator of Security in Color, which is a podcast for Cybersecurity National News. Great to be here.
We're having some technical difficulties with Toni getting connected. Could maybe I invite you ladies to have a bit of a dialogue while I help her kind of work through that?
Okay, so I'll get it started for us. So for all of us, what's been a unique challenge we faced as a woman in color in tech and cyberspaces? And Tomiko, you can go ahead and start.
Well, actually, even though I don't believe a lot of the things that we have encountered is really unique because it's been going on for years, people just have not addressed it. And one of the things that I would want to address and is relevant is leadership. Where are all the women of color in leadership? I don't see it. Salary is another thing. I know people, talk about like equity, but salary don't have anything to do with that. It's like for instance, white males make $10,000 more than women of color, Black women, and it's like there's not any type of equity there. That needs to be equal right there. Also, no promotions, but we have double work, and also being judged for the skills that they hired us for from a person that has less skills than us. And one more thing that I want to add, always having to prove yourself more times than none. But that's just me.
Mansi, as a newer person in cyber, what's been your experience? What challenges have you seen?
Yeah, I think, Tomiko, I don't think it's just you. I want to first say that. But I know I'm in that same boat too. But I think the issue that I'm currently dealing with, or something I haven't found the answer to, is like unconscious bias. And I don't even know how to bring that topic up to my friends, let alone colleagues and upper management, right? How do I say that, no, look, if I'm being too sweet, you're going to think of me in this way, and you do, right? The next time you want to talk to me about the next level or additional responsibility, you're like, no, she's too sweet, she's too timid. Or the other way around, if I'm too outspoken, then you'll be like, oh, Mansi just wants the attention all to herself. But how do I balance that? Or, they say that women often don't see tech and security as a viable career because it's known as a masculine field, right? Even now, when we think of a hacker, when we close our eyes, we think of that guy in the basement with the hoodie, right? We're like, we haven't even transformed that to being a girl in a hoodie, let alone being a woman of color in a hoodie, right? Like, not even a hoodie. She can be like, whatever she wants to wear. But that image is so ingrained in us that, like, how do we come across that? That's definitely something.
Well, I
So
definitely,
As you can see.
So true.
I definitely think the work that we're like this conversation and the work that individually we try to do within our field helps kind of tip the scale to the other way. And I know sometimes it can feel redundant to continuously have these conversations because it's like we already know the problems, we know the issues, right? And we're the ones who like are having to speak out it all the time. But at the same time, I kind of just have gotten to a point where these are conversations that are important, and regardless of the change might not happen with me in my field or in my lifetime. I mean, during my lifetime while I'm in the field, at least it'll happen for someone else later, right? For my little sister, I have a little sister who's 8 and she's getting into tech, right? So like when she comes up, the image that she'll see when it comes to type in hacker might be different by then in the next 20 some odd years. So it is really hard to kind of navigate some of this stuff. And there's, Tomiko had a really great list of things that we are trying to combat. And like tackling each one is its own like huge elephant, so to speak. Like it's just there and it's stifling. But at least for me, in terms of like answering back to the question of like challenges, I think for me, the biggest one has been either being the only woman or the only woman of color on an all-male team. When you get hired into, actually, I can't even say when you get hired into your field. I've had that situation happen for everything except one position that I've had, and I've been working for almost 9 years now. And out of all the teams that I've been in, only one of them happened to have another woman of color and another woman there. But otherwise, I'm still navigating kind of the same tropes that keep happening over and over again. And I think for me, I think it's just become a point where it's like I've had to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable because I want the job,
So
right?
true.
I want to
Yes.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
I want to advance, and I had to trust that the team that I am going into understands the point of view that I bring and understands that I probably, you can clearly see I am the only woman of color. So like making sure that they're doing their due diligence when they're hiring later, like what are they doing to increase my comfortability within the team, in terms of the hiring process, like making sure that all the companies and teams I join really value diversity and not just saying it, right? Not just putting it on Instagram or Black Square, any of that stuff. Like literally, what is the process? What are you doing when you hire the next person? Can I be involved? Who is involved? What steps or statistics are you taking? Because the one thing I've heard constantly is like companies will say, oh, we're collecting data. We have to get the numbers together. And it's like, the numbers are out there. We have the numbers,
Yes.
right? Like, where's the action that's backing that up? So for me, it's really about just learning to be uncomfortable and being comfortable with that.
So let me ask a question, and I'm going to jump in here like I'm not late. So, so let me ask a question though. Let me ask a question though to Mary or anybody who wants to answer the question. So, Tomiko, I think you touched on it. Dominique, you touched on it as well. How important is it to have representation, and not just representation at like the entry level, but representation throughout the organization? Why is that important when it comes to cybersecurity for Black women or women of color in general?
For me particularly, I'm like Dominique, I'm further in my career. I'm almost on the backside of it. And I'm looking to go into those kind of leadership roles, right? And we don't have them. None of the companies that I've ever worked in, including the one I'm at now, we have one Black guy who's like a senior VP or a VP in our department, and that's it. So there's nowhere really to go to talk to people. And so it's important. It's like, well, if I don't see them, then is it really something that they value? Do they really value differences in voices? And so one of the ways that I combat that is I seek help outside of my organization. So I go to the folks like Toni, she's like some high level position in the government, and people in those kind of positions, and get advice and get help from them so that I can start putting pieces in place to move to that particular role that I'm trying to get to, right? And then you also have to look at, if I don't see myself in this company, is this really where I want to be? And sometimes you have to take a risk to move to another company or move to a different department within your company that's a little bit more representative of what you want to be.
And also dealing with representation, I think is extremely important, especially to the younger generation, because if they don't see a person that looks like you, most likely they're going to bypass that field or get into it for a little bit, but not just stay there, because with some of the statistics, it will say that women and even women of color, they would start in the field, but they would not stay in the field. They would because become more discouraged. So if the representation is there, and also having a mentor, that can help encourage them to stay in the field. So I believe representation is important on that aspect. And another aspect is being in the inner workspace, where people that see other people that's different can understand different perspectives and understand, hey, well, okay, by looking at that person being different, it's like, oh, okay, well, this person is a possibility of representing like women of color. Maybe we should get other women of color in because of the different perspective that they can bring to the table.
No, I think that's spot on. I really do. And I think with everything that's going on, the social climate that we're in, the high visibility on diversity, not just in the organizations, but just really getting and gaining an understanding. I think that can put a lot of pressure, right, on the people who that are looked to put that perspective in, right, and to put that educational value in. So it leads me to kind of my next question. Women of color in the workspace, speak about some of the challenges from your perspective that you've seen in general, but really over the last several months. What are some of those things you think have changed because of the social climate right now in the country?
I'll take that one on. I think what I've seen in the past couple of months is definitely a lot of conversations and action about the need for change and like changing hiring practices. I just saw in the news about a company who thought that there wasn't, enough Black talent out there, all that kind of good stuff. That's kind of conversations that are coming up. But what I have been afraid of for the past couple of months, that's something that I've experienced and that like is coming out, is something about like focus, and then that leading to like burnout, right? Because when you are the only one on a team in an organization, XYZ, and you take on that burden, it can be very tiring, right? We are already in a situation, a pandemic that's asking a lot of us in general, just as an individual. And now at work, with us having to show up with all of the injustices going on and all of the just really negative things that are in the media, like having to put on a face and continue to be successful and like thrive simply because I know I have in some part my own kind of pressure that I put on myself, right? Because as a Black woman, as a representation, I'm like, okay, I need to be better, right? I can't afford to drop the ball. And in some ways that's not giving myself grace. So I have noticed that a lot of people are just, I appreciate the fact that people are getting opportunity, but like I want companies to be aware that when they are hiring a person of color into a company that hasn't put diversity at the forefront, that the kind of environment that they're bringing that person in can affect them being successful, right? Because they have to get acclimated with not having representation around. They might not have someone they can go to. They're not seeing representation from the top down or any other team. So now they're like, okay, like Mary said, she has to get that outside of her organization. And then as you're trying to be successful and as you're trying to go on, it's like, what is the company doing in order to build a culture that is inclusive of everybody and not just continuing on with the culture that they have? And I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing is that culture is really hard to change for a lot of companies. And that's one of the biggest hurdles that they will have to tackle before I think hiring diversity will really be successful.
And I think one thing that's key about that too is that a lot of times with inclusion, it's not a metric. So people want to tie everything back to a metric. People want to make everything quick. And then, like you said, changing culture is not a quick thing. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. So you have to be persistent. You have to be willing to wait. Mansi, do you have any thoughts about kind of like burnout and just a little bit about like the pressures that are put on women to kind of educate the space, I guess?
Yeah, no, I do. I think, and it's Google's my best friend. So I literally Googled like, what do you do when you're in a burnout, or what are the symptoms of being in a burnout? Because that's what I think I've been feeling for the past 6 to 8 months, almost, maybe even a little bit longer than that. And there's no timeline, right? There's no like pill that you pop in. You're like, okay, do this, do that, do this, and you're done. Like, there's no formula for that. So many researchers say, oh, go connect with the nature and things like that. And here in India, where I'm currently, I know that I haven't stepped outside my apartment in the last 28 days. Like, I haven't, even to get like the mail or anything like that, haven't stepped up because the entire country is in major lockdown right now. So how to find other ways to kind of relieve that burnout, or to be like, okay, just accepting it has been a huge thing. It's been a huge experience, I think, because as the other panelists on this panel, right, we're so like motivated, we're like, if we want to do this, we want to do this and do this, and all of a sudden when you can't, and it's not necessarily because of your own lack of skills, it's just because where the world is right now, it causes more pressure, I think, and that internal pressure is another metric that we don't have, right? We don't have a way of measuring, like, okay, what is the stress level like today? And it changes from morning to afternoon to evening on any given day. I think that's, on a personal level, I think that's where I'm facing a lot of my challenges.
Yeah, like Dominique, touched on, where you still have to feel that you have to, you have to still put in that work. You can't, it's almost like with me, I can't feel that I have a day off mentally. I still have to put in that work, because of the pressure that I put on myself. Even though all the things that's going on right now, I still put pressure on myself. Even though I have a great CEO that said take some time, I'm still putting pressure on myself, because as a woman of color, I feel that I'm being judged constantly on a regular basis, regardless of what's going on in the world. So to be honest, during the whole pandemic, during the whole George Floyd thing, I had to just step back for a minute and do some, therapeutic exercises. And well, my therapeutic exercise is writing poems, writing raps. I wrote like 3 raps in 1 week just to get my sanity back, into its place. So it has been a lot of pressure on a lot of people, especially if you have kids. I'm not the one that have kids or anything like that, but I see the pressure. I see the pressure on school teachers. I see the pressure on people that just can't adjust to the pandemic. There one time, one of my cousins advised someone to, because they were just having so much of anxiety, in the house because of the pandemic. And she advised, and other people could take, I even took the advice, is to still do your normal routine of getting dressed and act like you're going out. Take a ride around the block and come back home and act like you at work. so it can be halfway normal, to your life. But it has been a strain on everyone, and especially dealing with even women of color that's even not in the field, that's single parents. It's and that's when I think about salary too. It's like, it doesn't add up. So I guess I can go on and on about this, but there is a lot of pressure, but at the same time, we just take it one day at a time.
Yep, that's really all you can do, and take care of yourself, right? At the end of the day, what's going to happen is going to happen. You can hope to influence it, but you definitely have to take care of yourself, because
Yes.
No one cares about you more than you care about yourself, hopefully. So
Exactly.
So I'm not monitoring the chat, guys. So if there's some good questions that are coming in the chat, please let me know. I can't do both. But
there is one.
Yeah,
But
there is one.
as an mentor asked, what about solutions? Like, what would we do different if we were the CEO of a company? How would you change culture? Which I think is important to also like bring about what would we want as rather. I guess I'm a person who's like, okay, if I find a challenge and there's complaints, like what would I do differently to solve it? And I thought that was a really important question. It's like, if you were a CEO of your company and you want to change diversity, you want to change all these initiatives, like what would that look like?
okay.
Well, actually,
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No.
You got it. I like it. To jump in there and get it.
Well, actually, I think about that sometimes. I'm all about treating people the way I want to be treated. So being a CEO or, that leadership in the company, I would have to do sometimes a one-on-one with individuals to let them know that they're special, to let them know they're welcome in my company, to let them know that their voice matter. They're not just a face. Especially when you deal with diversity and inclusion. I've seen a lot of diversity, okay, but having that inclusion is extremely important because of the fact you have that voice, not just that face. Because a lot of people, when they see diversity, they're like, oh, okay, it's diverse people, all these people here. But then what about, are you including them into the relevant topics that will help change the company, to help innovate the company? So you will get that. It's a two-way street. Being in leadership, you have to make sure that your employees are good. You have to make sure that they are comfortable in expressing their thoughts, their feelings, and also their opinions. Because I believe if everyone have their own thoughts, their own perspective of something, there's nothing dumb about it. So create a space for them so they can be comfortable. Then they can start like creating their creative juices, so they can actually bring a lot of great ideas for the company. So but if they're secluded and they're just only doing one thing, then all their creative juices are not coming to our company so we can broaden our horizons and so we can be successful.
Yeah, I agree. And you touched on a really good point about leadership. I think that just because we may look similar doesn't mean that we're monolithic in thought and experience, right? And I think a lot of times there's an assumption that, what Toni has experienced, Dominique has experienced the same thing in the same way. And that's not true. And so I think that as a leader, you really do need to take that individual time and understand what each individual person has gone through, what their experiences are, and really what moves and motivates those people. Mansi, do you have anything to add?
No, but I'm just nodding my head like, yes. And I think just to kind of emphasize on this, right? I think I think in general, the industry is where you kind of feel siloed anyways. And then now you add in the social things that are happening in the pandemic where everyone kind of gets in there 2 by 2 and then that's all it is, right? I know that right now, the only reason I have my hair combed is because of this panel discussion. And then, but to realize that we're all in the same boat, right? And I know that's something I have to keep on telling. I go, no, the other person's going through, it's like, we're in this together, we're in this together. So as much as the challenges or the pressures or whatever's going on in the world right now kind of help or are building up the walls, I think it's only ourselves that we can kind of crash them down and say, no, like we're all in this together, whether, no matter who we are, we're all in it together.
I think some really great solutions that I've experienced that's kind of helped push the needle forward a bit, or at least in terms of making the diverse hires more included and more comfortable is similar to what Tomiko said, like one-on-ones where I've gotten calls from my executive team where they're like, hey, I know this injustice just happened. How are you feeling? Like, are you aware of the resources we have? Do you need some time off? And like really get, instead of having, because I've had it before where they just had an all call and they've kind of repeated their handbook kind of thing in comparison to like having an executive team actually call my cell phone and like take the time to have a 30-minute conversation with me about this and tell me like, this isn't a perspective he's ever had to deal with and he wants to, make sure that he's being an ally and he's changing. So like things like that is really appreciative. They're small, but they make a difference because it made me feel like, hey, I actually, have some value here. Like he took the time to call me. And then previously also there was like I forgot the actual term for it, but basically it was just a board of different members from different diverse groups who kind of came together and they were the liaison between quote unquote, like the company and executive team. Right. And they were the ones who were having the conversations about, hey, what changes do we want the executive team to implement? And had come, we met very often, monthly or maybe every 2 weeks. And we would say, hey, this holiday is coming up that represents this group, or this month of awareness is coming up. Let's make sure we're celebrating that. Or, hey, this just happened in the world. What can we do? Like, and sometimes I think the thing that's happening is that those who are in power, those who have the ability to change things, they might not know, right? They might not know how to deal with it and how to tackle it. And I think the first step is just really communicating with said whoever person is within your organization, and then bringing in maybe a third party. There are plenty of people out there who are doing great work in the diversity and inclusion space. They have been talking about this and fighting the good fight for a long time. And I think it's now time for us to really have a say and have that voice and have these tough conversations. And similar to what I said in the beginning of learning to be uncomfortable, because these are uncomfortable conversations. And the only great thing that comes from uncomfortable conversations is just greatness. Like, we're not going to be uncomfortable forever, or I hope we won't be uncomfortable forever, but the whole goal is to come to some kind of common ground and like understanding. So I think those are some really great steps I've seen at previous companies that hopefully people can take forth if they're comfortable of saying, hey, can I have a one-on-one time with you? Can we develop a board that will act as a liaison for executives who maybe don't have time? Like we'll set up a cadence or something like that. Like really try to brainstorm some initiatives to like bring forth and not just really talk about it.
Okay. So I think we have to actually wrap up. And so in your closing statements, can you guys really just tell me a little bit about anything that you think we may have left out, but really about the inclusionary piece? Because I think the diversity portion of it, we understand how to get, well, I won't say we understand holistically, but there are ways to be more open about announcements and about job openings and opportunities, but the inclusionary piece. So in your closing statement, anything you think we left out, and anything you think inclusionary wise people could do better in their companies? And I'm gonna start with Mary.
So pretty much, I think for the individual, you definitely have to take your career into your own hands. Find folks that, you know, you resonate with, that you can talk to about issues, and also find folks that that will probably give you super truthful feedback that's different from what you're normally used to hearing, in a loving way, basically. And just take the risk. I mean, I took a risk leaving DC to come to Las Vegas, and it's returned to me 1,000-fold. So you got to be able to take that risk.
Good. Dominique?
For me, I think it always boils down to communication and like always putting yourself first. So like we're in a time where burnout is more often than not even just with work, with just life in general. So I think really understanding what that means for you and adjusting it, and then, you know, taking the time to take care of yourself, right? If you want to be in this field, you belong here. There is definitely space here. Everyone definitely has a voice here. So it's just really about really understanding and building your community, and then always making sure, you know, you're taking care of yourself first.
Okay. Mansi, and then Tomiko, can you close us out with something special?
Yeah, I was gonna say something like, more than anything, have fun, right? I think it's easier said than done, because I'm like, what do I do for having fun? But in the industry, if there's a certain topic that you're interested in researching or learning more about, I say go for it, right? Doesn't matter if it's part of your job role or not. Doesn't matter if your management allows it. I don't know if it doesn't matter, but don't let that confine you. So if there is something that you're passionate about, I've seen it and I've experienced it myself, where there was something I really wanted to happen at work, and instead of having it waiting for the top down, sometimes the bottom up can have a good effect too. So, yeah.
Good point. Tomiko?
Are you okay in your workspace while your coworkers don't have a clue in what you're going through? Do your company care about what's going on right now? Let's do an assessment. I'll show you how. There may be threats and vulnerabilities in the air. Check your company. Do they really care? Have anyone at the job asked how you doing? Are you good? Or do you still burnt out or just ruined? So many mixed messages makes it hard to concentrate. Have your coworkers brought up the situation with a warm embrace? But I dare you to go to your BIPOC coworkers and friends. Act like you care and not pretend. You will see them through from their heart. And this is not the only way, but it's a start. We will all get through this together in this space. But change is more than just high and by in this workplace and WFH. Dehumanizing someone because of the color of their skin, especially in the workplace, do a leadership assessment to understand the trend. Some may know or not know all that's going on, but everyone definitely knows right from wrong. So if you answered all the questions and did an assessment, if it was a positive vibe, then count your blessings. Thank you.
Hey, I'm a mic drop on that one. That was so good, Tomiko. Thank you so much for that. Sans, thank you for the opportunity and for the space. And thank you, panelists, for sharing your experiences. Appreciate it all. Thanks, everybody. That was dope.
That was really dope. Thank you so much, ladies. This has been amazing to see, you know, 5 amazing women of color sharing in this very important dialogue. And so can't thank you enough. There's so many gems that you dropped in and through this conversation that just made my heart smile. And, you know, I think it could have been Mansi that, you know, said one day at a time, or Tomiko. You know, and I shared recently, some days it feels like you need to take it 1 hour at a time, right? And the intersectionality of being women of color and being in the cybersecurity industry is tough. And so you brought awareness to, you know, a very important topic. And so can't thank you enough. Appreciate you.